Gray first met Williams in 1948 while he was a student at Tulane University in New Orleans. Gray describes the encounter and Tennessee Williams within his interviews at Randolph-Macon.
It was a rainy day and I didn't have an umbrella, so I ducked into a bar. In those days, all the bars in New Orleans were darkly lit. Suddenly I realized that someone had sat down next to me, so we began talking. The man told me that he was a writer, but in New Orleans everyone said they were a writer or an artist, so I was skeptical. I asked him what he had published. He said he'd only published a few short stories, but he had written a play that was now on Broadway. I asked him the play's name, and he replied, The Glass Menagerie. Now I'm playing along with what I thought was a great joke. I said, So I assume you're Tennessee Williams. What a coincidence. I'm William Faulkner. After talking longer, he proved that he was indeed Tennessee.
At the time, Williams was well known, but not famous internationally, and had just finished writing The Rose Tattoo. Gray would always visit Williams when he was in town.
We spent early afternoons swimming at Pontchartrain Beach, late afternoons having long conversations over a cool drink on a patio, evenings eating at some fine French Quarter restaurant, and walking around the colorful streets of the Quarter. What I enjoyed best with Tennessee is talking with him. We read together a great deal. He read aloud from Hart Crane, D.H. Lawrence, Anton Chekhov, and especially Charlotte Bue. We used to cry over her poem, Madeline in Church. Williams is a very moody person, but you would know he was in a good mood when he would extend his hand, look at his diamond ring, and say, My diamond is brilliant tonight. You would know it was going to be an evening of great fun because no one had, as far as I know, no one had a sense of humor, a sense of ridiculous like Tennessee. He could be more fun than a fun house. Those were great days. We liked the same people. We liked the same places. We liked to do the same things. We could be silent together for hours. We liked to read aloud to each other. We enjoyed the same things. Tennessee is not an intellectual. He is not a person of ideas. He's very spontaneous, very intuitive. He is a person of feeling, a person of emotion rather than of intellect.
Several years later, Williams gained more recognition around the globe for his works. His fame caused him to spend more time in New York than in New Orleans. This is when Williams talked Gray into enrolling in New York University. This allowed the two to see each other more often than they did in New Orleans. It also gave Gray the chance to meet several important writers and poets through Williams.
I got to know Williams in New York City and delightfully discovered that our tastes were the same. We saw each other practically every day from 1952 to 1955. Tennessee introduced me to William Ing, Carson McCullers, Truman Capote, Gore Vidal, and so very many other people who have enriched my life.
Some of the most unique facts and stories Gray told about Tennessee Williams took place during that 3-year period in New York.
In the early 1950s, Tennessee's day would go like this. He would write from 9 till 12. It didn't make any difference where he was, come hell or high water. He would write from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Then he would have a couple of martinis, have a leisurely lunch, perhaps go swimming or we'd take in a movie. I really don't think his writing habits have changed much to this day. But Tennessee writes from nervousness. He writes simply because he has to. Writing is just as necessary for him as eating and drinking. When his very beautiful play, one of his and my favorites, Summer and Smoke, was playing at the Sheraton Square in New York, and a new actor was taking over one of the major roles, and he wanted to see this actor, we went down there and he asked to buy 2 tickets. They told him that they were sold out, and he said, "Well, could we stand?" And they told him that there was no standing room. I was amused and said, "Tennessee, why don't you tell them who you are?" He was very nervous, and the woman selling the tickets asked if he knew anyone who was connected with the play, and he said yes, he did. And she said, "Are you connected with the play in any way? Is there any reason why I should let you in?" And in a very timid, shy, and embarrassed way, he confessed that he wrote it. And that was the end. But he would never say who he was. That didn't appeal to him at all. Tennessee can be a pretty wild character sometimes, and in the 1950s he used to have this malicious dog which he named Mr. Moon. Well, we were walking Mr. Moon one day down Park Avenue, and a middle-aged, overdressed, over-made-up woman came up to him and told him to get his dog off the street. Tennessee looked at the woman and then at the dog and said in a haughty voice, "Sicker, Mr. Moon, bite that bitch on the ass." And the lady, at first shocked, stormed off, never knowing who had insulted her. I remember once we were going to dinner when he lived above Johnny Nicholson's restaurant, the Cafe Nicholson on the east side. We had a few glasses of champagne and we were going out together when Elia Kazan, the director, telephoned and asked Tennessee if he would like to have dinner with Judy Garland. This was when Judy Garland was at her height. She had just made a film called A Star is Born, and it had been released in New York that week, and everyone was talking about Judy Garland. Tennessee's reply was, "Well, I'm having dinner with Bill." The director said, "Ask Bill if he would like to come too." I said that I would love to, so he said we would go. We were to meet at the Pavilion. This was the best restaurant in New York, probably the best restaurant in the world, and we met at the Pavilion, the 3 of us. But there was no Miss Garland, and we asked to be taken to her table, and we waited, and nothing happened. Tennessee ordered a bottle of champagne, and we drank champagne, and still no Miss Garland. Finally, after 25 minutes to an hour had gone by, this man walked up to the table talking about the maitre d'. We could all hear him, and he said, "Where's Judy Garland's table?" And the maitre d' said, "Here." And he said, "Well, I'm giving this party, and I don't know who these people are." Tennessee jumped up. I've very seldom seen quite this angry, and said, "I'm Tennessee Williams, and this is Bill Gray, and I don't know who you are, but we are leaving." Now, of course, the man was just amazed. He just stood there, and Tennessee asked for the check for the champagne. The man said, "Oh, I will take care of that." And Tennessee very grandly said, "I deny you the pleasure." He took the check and signed his name and said, "I don't want to meet that actress anyway."
Although Williams and Gray continued to correspond and occasionally call each other, they seldom saw one another the last years of Williams' life. Once Gray began teaching English at Randolph-Macon College, and when Williams was living more in Key West. At the time of his death, Gray was even asked to be a pallbearer at his funeral. Gray believes that Tennessee Williams was the greatest American playwright of the 20th century.